The number one question I get asked from subscribers is, do product managers need to be able to code? And the answer is no. But we do have to be somewhat technical, and I found a training that can help us get the exact right amount of technical knowledge. So if you're interested in that, stay right here. Hey everyone, my name is Elisa, and in this channel I talk about all things product, career, and life. So if any of that's interesting to you, I highly recommend you subscribe. I also started posting a little bit more on Instagram, so if you're interested in some entertaining content there, check out Elisa Works. And I've also started doing some one-on-one calls with subscribers, which has been a lot of fun. I do anything from just basic career conversations where I can hear what your situation is and try and guide you in the right direction. I also can help with interview prep. I love doing mock interviews and providing feedback and even helping you structure your answers. And I also can help with presentation prep. I like doing presentations, and I can help people just knock it out of the park when they're presenting. So if you're interested in any of those calls, check out the link in the description. I'd love to chat with you. So let's dive into the meat of this video. I want to talk about Skiplevel. Now, Skiplevel is a course that helps product managers become more technical, and transparently, a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, they had reached out to me to just do a 2-minute ad in one of my videos. So when they reached out to me, I looked at what they had to offer, and it seemed like a really compelling course. So I said, sure, I'll gladly do a 2-minute ad. I believe in what they're selling and would be happy to kind of share what they have. But then Skiplevel just stuck with me. It was something I continued to think about, and I was like, I've always felt like I needed to become more technical, and I've felt in my career like maybe my lack of technical knowledge was holding me back. And so a couple weeks had passed, and I went back to Skiplevel's website, and they offer this mini quiz. And I took the mini quiz, and a couple things for you to know. One, I bombed the mini quiz. I did like a really bad F grade on the quiz. I also had an interesting aha moment when I was taking the quiz. So there was one question in particular that stood out to me. And it was a question about how, as a product manager, you might improve the speed or latency of the product you're working on. And that question stuck out to me because, 5-6 years ago, I had an interview with a FANG company, and they asked me this exact question. And I had a very high level answer. I think I just said caching, which is a correct answer, but I didn't know any of the other ways to improve speed or latency, and if you were to ask me any details about caching in general, like the different types of caching, I couldn't answer. And so when I was taking this mini quiz, I was like, oh my gosh, not only is this stuff I don't know, but it's information that would be helpful in technical interviews, but also just in day-to-day having conversations with engineering teams and engineering leadership, and even product and executive leadership too. A lot of people in tech who are in those positions are fairly technical. So when I took that mini quiz, I came to the realization that I actually wanted to enroll myself. So I actually invested and signed up for the course, and frankly, I couldn't be happier that I did. I'm like 95% done with the course now, and I feel so much more confident in my technical skills. So let's dive into actually look at what the course offers. So here we are in Skiplevel's course. There is a pre-program setup which took like a couple minutes. There is a great note-taking template that they provide for you that makes it really easy to follow along and take notes in a really organized way, which is just kind of nice. But then the real work starts with module 1, which is infrastructure and apps. Then there is a speed and latency module, which again relates directly to what I just mentioned in that tech interview. There's a module about data and databases, which was great. There's a very tough module about architecture and diagrams, which was the hardest module for me, but ultimately I think one of the more valuable ones. And then there was a last module about the software development lifecycle. So let's dive in. So the infrastructure and apps module, it's the first one you take, and I finished this module and I was like, wow, I can't wait to take the rest. I genuinely enjoyed learning in this module, and the things I learned gave me so many aha moments. Oh my gosh, engineers have talked about this very thing, and while I knew kind of what they were talking about, I didn't really have a solid understanding of what they were saying. So it starts out by talking about just the basics of the internet and the cloud, which sounds almost silly, but I knew conceptually what these things were, but it was really helpful to really understand the logic of how these things function. It then goes into different types of scaling and even auto scaling and AWS and other platforms as well. One of the most helpful things about Skiplevel actually is they talk about the different tools. So a lot of times you'll hear engineers reference different tools and you might not know what those tools actually do. In this course, I learned what all of those tools do, which is just helpful. It gives you context when you're talking to leadership or trying to understand your tech stack. This module also talked about like the application layer and the difference between front end and back end. And something that was helpful for me too is the overview of different libraries and frameworks. Again, just understanding the tech stack is really important and something that I never really had a firm grasp on. And then there was a big section in this module about APIs, and actually the exercise in this module was using Postman for mock APIs. So you're actually learning how these APIs work and how your engineers are actually using APIs. And so I thought this was just a fantastic module. It got me really interested in Skiplevel as a whole. I felt like, wow, I can learn a lot with this course. So I finished module 1, was excited to dive into module 2, which was about speed and latency, which again is something that will come up a lot as a product manager. You'll always talk about ways to improve speed in your product. But this provided so much information on the different ways you can improve speed, but also the different trade-offs with different techniques, which as a product manager, when you're having conversations with engineers on how to best implement something, it's important for the product person to understand trade-offs with different approaches. So in this module, there was a lot of information about how the internet works and like how far data needs to travel across the world, which sounds so elementary, but was actually really helpful in setting the scene for this module. It then talks about content delivery networks or CDNs, which honestly is a term I heard a lot, but didn't really know what it was. So it was nice to just get an understanding of what that was. And then it talked about different ways to improve network speed. So that's like caching or incremental loading, graceful degradation. There's a lot of different stuff in here just so that a product manager can be fully equipped with the different ways to improve speed. And then it talks a little bit about coding efficiency. It talked about different processing techniques like async versus synchronous, as well as client-side rendering and server-side rendering. So it was a really, really good overview. It was so helpful to understand what these terms actually meant. And the activity for this one, I actually really enjoyed. You actually go into AWS and create an S3 bucket and use CloudFront CDN to distribute an image, which is like very basic stuff here, but actually going into these tools and doing even a basic exercise really helped me understand a lot of the workings of what my engineers have been doing on a much larger scale. Really liked module 2. I learned so much. And then it was time for me to go into module 3, which is all about data and databases. Now, frankly, this is where I felt a little bit more comfortable. I know SQL, I understand relational databases, I'd say, but this module I had a very big aha moment when it talked about SQL versus NoSQL databases. I'd say I knew SQL databases relatively well, but I didn't know all the different types of NoSQL databases. And there were a couple words that I heard where I'm like, oh, that's what my engineers were talking about with this type of a database. There was an aha moment for me where I was learning about the different types of NoSQL databases, and one of them is really good for documents. And a tool that's often used is MongoDB for that. And I was like, oh, that's why we use MongoDB for that part of the product that I worked on X number of years ago. And so there were some aha moments, and I started to learn like there is different types of databases that work for different types of things, like networks or something like that. So this was super helpful for me to learn. It also talked about software development kits or SDKs, which you'll hear a lot as a product manager. And then in this exercise, we used DynamoDB, which is another AWS product, and just set up a few tables, which is like kind of basic, but it was really helpful just to like do the exercise and fully understand what your engineers might be doing, specifically like your back-end engineers. So Module 3 was great. It was a great overview of data and databases. Then it was time for Module 4, which I knew Module 4 would talk a lot about the differences between monoliths and microservices, which is something I have wanted to learn for a long time. Like, I knew conceptually, but wanted to learn more. And so this kind of gave an overview of what software architecture is, and then dove right into monolith versus microservices and talked about the trade-offs between each of them, which for product managers, it's so important to understand those trade-offs. Like, our job is understanding trade-offs. There were also a lot of terms and tools that were mentioned here where I was like, yep, my engineers have said that word. I wish I knew what that was when they said it. This module also talked about software diagrams, and software diagrams are something that you never will have to create as a PM, but you should understand. And in some technical interviews for product managers, you might have to read a software diagram and be able to say what's going on. So this was a very helpful module. It was kind of hard. I had to get some help in the community on the actual exercise where you were creating a software diagram, but it was a super, super helpful module. A lot of terminology I learned that I'd recognized from, having conversations with engineers. So this was great. And then there's the last module, which I'd say for most product managers, this is where you'll be most comfortable. You have probably a pretty good understanding of the SDLC, but it was a good refresher. And then towards the end of it, when you're starting to learn more about like the deployment phase, that was very informative to me, and getting a refresher on CI/CD and containers was super helpful. I actually always hear about Docker and knew of containerization, but didn't fully comprehend it and didn't understand the key difference between containers and virtual machines. So actually, that was a really helpful part of Module 5. And then in the exercise, you actually set up a CI/CD pipeline, which is something your engineers probably do, and you'll never have to do it, but it's just so helpful to learn really what your engineers are doing. So that's an overview of the course. Each module took me a couple hours to do, which is super manageable. It wasn't like an intimidating course where I had to spend 3 months, doing night classes. It was a very manageable course that you could get done in a couple weeks, even if you're working a full-time job. So I really appreciated that. I also think it gives you the exact right amount of information as a product manager. It doesn't go too deep into details that you don't need to know about, but it tells you information that will be really helpful for you in conversations with engineers, but also with leadership that might be a little bit more technical. So my overall review of this course, I thought it was great. It is an investment, but if you're going to invest in yourself, I think this is a great way to do that. I also think, this course is geared towards product managers, which is great. It's perfect for product managers. But I'd actually say I think this course could be really helpful for anyone working in tech who's not an engineer. So if you are in support or customer success or sales, it's really good to understand the concepts that are covered here. Like, I can just imagine in a sales call, right? Like someone asking a technical question about the product. If a salesperson were to take a course like this, they'd really be able to grasp how the product is built and could answer those questions in a sales call much more easily. So I think this is a course that really could benefit anyone in tech, aside from engineers, because engineers probably know most of this stuff, I would guess. So I highly recommend this course. I do know it's an investment, but if you're looking to invest in yourself this year, in your skills, and you truly want to level up in your career, I think this is a great way to do so, and it doesn't require, months and months and months of studying, which is good if you're already feeling overwhelmed with work or have a lot going on in your life. Lastly, I do have a discount code that can save you some money on that enrollment, which is Elisa Works, all caps. It does help with the enrollment fee. It still is an investment, but it does certainly help a little bit. Also, I would love to know either what you think. I know some of you already enrolled in the course. I'd love to hear in the comments what your reaction to the course is. And if you have questions about the course or want to learn more, please post in the comments. I'll try to respond to all the comments I can to make sure you have the most information possible before enrolling in the course. So overall, this course is great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I loved learning and I feel so much smarter after taking this course, and I hope that you seriously consider taking it to level up your game as well. So there we have it. I hope this video was helpful for you, especially if you've been considering this course or considering a course to level up your product skills. If you did like it, I ask that you give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to hear more from me, please subscribe. Also, as a reminder, I've got an Instagram account where you can follow me for some entertaining content, and you're welcome to set up some one-on-one calls with me if you want to chat career or interviews or presentations. Whew. This was a meaty one. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, friends.